cutting to the core, understanding, cut the squash. Hello everyone, welcome to our English language learning series. Today, we're going to dive into a common phrase in English, cut the squash. This phrase can be a bit tricky for learners, so let's explore its meaning and usage together. Cut the squash is a straightforward phrase that means to physically slice or divide a squash, a type of vegetable, into parts. It's a common instruction in cooking. We'll look at how to use this phrase in sentences and its various contexts. First, let's discuss the literal meaning. Squash is a vegetable, often used in soups, stews, or as a side dish. When a recipe instructs to cut the squash, it means to use a knife to slice or chop the squash into the desired size for the recipe. There are variations to how you might encounter this phrase. For instance, dice the squash, chop the squash, or slice the squash. Each of these has a slightly different meaning in terms of how the squash is cut. We'll look at examples to understand these differences. Now, let's put cut the squash into some example sentences. This will help you understand how to use it in everyday conversation or when following a recipe. Could you cut the squash while I prepare the sauce? I find it easier to cut the squash after it's been peeled. The recipe says to cut the squash into half-inch cubes. In English, many phrases have both a literal and an idiomatic meaning. However, cut the squash is usually used in its literal sense. It's less common as an idiom or metaphor, but it's always good to be aware of both possibilities. And that's a wrap on cut the squash. I hope this video has helped clarify this common English phrase for you. Remember, language learning is all about practice, so don't hesitate to use this phrase next time you're in the kitchen or discussing recipes. Happy learning, and see you in our next video.